The following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to On Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz here, and Angie McCarthy from the warming shelter, the day-by-day warming shelter, is our guest tonight. She's the executive director. She's been there for a couple of years now, I think, and we're going to be talking to Angie about the warming shelter. They're about ready to wrap up their third season, and we're going to find out. For some of you who aren't familiar with the warming shelter, we're going to kind of go back in the annals of history here and really talk about how it came to be, something that Oshkosh has needed for a while, and we're going to find out how it came to be, who was behind the movement to get it going, and what it did the first couple of years, and then we're going to talk about this most recent season. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate your coming in on kind of a not so nice night. The calendar says spring, but it doesn't feel like it.
Not yet.
No. So, well, let's talk about, since I said we were going to, we'll talk about, how the day-by-day warming shelter came into existence in Oshkosh and, really what homeless people in town did before we got this wonderful facility.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a couple of sheltering options in Oshkosh, long-standing organizations, wonderful organizations. The Christine Ann Center, which takes domestic abuse victims in to shelter them, and Father Carr's Place to Be. So both of those establishments have been around for a very, very long time. However, there was identified, and it's been a gap that's been an unfulfilled need in the community for a very long time, that there was a certain number of our population who were falling through the cracks that didn't qualify to stay at either of those places. And so some research was done by an interested group of people, and they did some research and they did some studies. The group Esther, which is, I call them an action group in the community, got together. Our current board president, Tina Hafman, was part of that movement, and got people around that gap, that need, and they really did some research. So they used some things that were already in place, like the point-in-time survey that AdvoCap does in January and July of each year, tracking and finding out where homeless people are in the community. The other piece was the United Way Life Study Report, and homelessness is one of the chapters and components to that report. And so between that and just really checking in the community and talking to people and people that didn't qualify for Father Carr's and Christine Ann, those components all kind of identified that there were about 10 to 12, 15 people in the community that really did not have a place to stay, that were homeless and consistently homeless. And so they did that research, they pulled all those components together and decided that, if 10, 12, 15 people, neighbors in our own community, are suffering and really putting their life at risk by being on the street, what can we do as a community? We have a responsibility to care for our own. And so that's kind of where the story began. And so a board was developed. We were incorporated as a nonprofit organization. United Way became our fiscal agent until we became an official nonprofit organization, so we're very grateful to them for that. And we opened our doors for the first time mid-October of 2011.
Really, it happened so quickly. Anyone who knows Tina Haveman, knows that this woman is a dynamo, really. I mean, if you want something done, Tina's the person to do it.
Absolutely.
She charges forward. It doesn't matter what the task is. If it's something that she feels we need and she's passionate about it, she moves forward like a bull. She charges forward. And then they hired you eventually, and you're kind of the same way. You let nothing stand in your way. You just move on forward. And full disclosure for people, not that it really makes a difference, but I am an employee of the warming shelter. I handle all of their, I am a part-time employee. I handle all of their PR and so forth. And so grateful to have that position. And
we're so happy to have you.
And thank you. And to work with you guys, because it is a much needed facility in the community.
It is. The question that you had asked earlier, where did these people go before we got here? Those people that we are now providing service for, I don't know where they did. I don't know where they went or what they did. Our first season, Joe out at Father Cars was kind enough to give us 20 mattresses, and so we talked to the city and said, what is our capacity going to be? And for people that don't know, we're housed at Most Blessed Sacrament Campus, downtown Oshkosh, which is a beautiful, perfect location, and we're so grateful to the parish and Father Jim for allowing us to stay there. We pay for the space $1 a year. We do pay all of our utilities and insurance, but it's a wonderful space because it's connected to everything that our guests need. And so when we first opened our doors, we said, well, we talked to the city, they looked at the space, and I said I have 20 mattresses, and so we just agreed on 20 beds. By the third week in our very first season, we were already full. We already had those 20 beds full. And so by November, mid-November, Thanksgiving time, I went back to the city and I said, we're already at capacity and I'm concerned about not being able to help everybody that comes to our door. And so they came and re-inspected the facility and said we could have 5 overflow beds. So in our second season, in October of 2012, we were then at, our capacity is at 25. The bad news is that is going to be our top capacity in the facility that we're in. And so, and for a lot of reasons, American Disability Act codes, sprinkler systems, number of toilets that we have, all of those things, we run on a temporary occupancy permit, which the city has allowed us to do. So, which is another reason why we're a seasonal shelter and only open for 6 months out of the year. But the coldest months, although this year is pushing the limit on us a bit, I'm a little worried.
It's still cold.
I'm a little worried. But mid-October to mid-April is our 6-month season. So 25 is our capacity, and there's something magical about that third week because each season now, including this one, by week 3, we've hit that number of capacity. And so again, that's still a very big concern of mine and our board is that there may be people that we're not able to help.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about those in just a few minutes, Angie. It seems silly asking you these questions because I know all these answers for the most part, but our audience doesn't. So, let's talk about the philosophy statement of the shelter. And I think we've got a slide of that, if we could put that up. So tell us about the philosophy statement.
Well, we really feel it's the community's responsibility to really care for each other and people in our community and even people from outside our community. And one of the concerns early on, I did a lot of work that first season really educating and bringing awareness because I think a lot of people in the community were concerned we're going to attract homeless people to the city of Oshkosh. And just the opposite is true. We keep really tight data on every guest every single night that comes into the shelter, and we know exactly who they are and where they come from. And 90% of our guests are our neighbors. They're from the community and they've been here for a long time. We don't have geographic parameters as to who can stay at the shelter, but I can tell you that the majority are from the Oshkosh and greater Oshkosh area. We do accept people from out of county and out of state and out of town. And those people that have come, and again, we know this by our tracking and our data because we want to be transparent to everyone that asks, who do you serve and so forth, that those folks really are just in and out of the shelter. They will only stay with us a day or two because they literally are passing through going someplace else to their ultimate destination, wherever that may be.
Now, your mission statement is kind of similar to your philosophy statement, but it's a little different. You want to share that with us?
Sure. We believe that, and it's very simple, sometimes too simple, because people have said, well, that's all you do, and I always kind of balk at that a little bit. What we do is we provide night-to-night emergency shelter, a warm bed, a homemade hot supper at night, a breakfast in the morning. We give these people that, and people say, who do you serve? And I kind of summarize them and put them in the terms of the least of these. These are people that have nothing, that literally do not have support systems, and we become that for them. And so this becomes their safe haven. When those guests are with us and they have that safety and security of I'm safe, I'm warm, I'm fed, I don't have to worry where my next meal is coming from, where I'm going to put my head tonight, or if I'm going to freeze to death in this cold, brutal Wisconsin winter. They can then focus on some of the other challenges that they have, and that could be anything from, improving their lives to gaining more learning capacity and going on to school, or becoming proficient in a skill to maintain it and get a job, and that can lead them to permanent supportive housing. So people don't come to us just because they need shelter. They come to us because they have a myriad of crises or situations going on. And so again, we kind of just help them and keep them safe, and we kind of peel the layers off as they stay with us, and help them in other areas as well.
Where do these folks go in the summer months, Angie? Because you said before that you're just, you're a seasonal shelter. Well, at the end of April,
Right.
when the shelter closes its doors, these people just don't miraculously have homes to go to.
Right, right.
So
Homelessness
what
doesn't end April 15th
right,
when we close.
Right. So what happens
unfortunately.
then to these folks?
I talked to them about that. We open mid-October, and by November 1st, I have what I call a house meeting every week with all of our guests that stay with us. And so I meet with them. I want them to know me. I want to get to know them. I want to know what their needs are. In order for me to run the shelter in the best capacity I can, I need to know what their needs are. And they've really responded in such a positive way to that, and have been so thankful. And for those that have been homeless for a long time and have been to a lot of other shelters, they said, we've never met another executive director or president or CEO of the shelters that we stay at. And so they thank me for taking time to ask them what the needs are. And I said, I've never been homeless, so I don't know what those needs are. You need to tell me so I can best serve you.
Yeah.
And again, for me, this is a matter of service. And so when I talk to them about that, again, starting November 1st, every single week I talk to them, what's the plan? Where are you going to go? Start making plans for where you're going to go if you're with us at the end of the season on April 15th. The first season, I tried really diligently to find everybody a spot to be safe over summer. And that's not even in my job description, but human nature, I'm a helper, I'm a doer. So that's what I wanted to do. And we had all but maybe 2 or 3 people that didn't have a spot. The second season, again, our numbers were up. We had 103 different people the first season. We had 127 people our last season. And that's a lot of people to have to find places for. And so again, I said, there's a level of accountability and responsibility on your part. And we assist them, and we give them all sorts of different options, probably in about a 60 to 80 mile radius of Oshkosh, other warming shelters, emergency shelters, homeless shelters, that they might be able to go to. And again, we really help work with them. My little phrase that I like to use is, we give people a hand up, not a hand out. We don't want to create dependency. I would love to work myself right out of this job, that we don't need a homeless warming shelter in the city of Oshkosh anymore. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
No.
But we want to be there for them. And so our ultimate goal is to work with them and get them the pieces that they need to raise their self-sufficiency. They have to have that buy-in on their own. They need to know where their gaps are and what they need to do. For many of our guests, it's a matter of sobriety. So this season we brought an AA group to the shelter.
Oh,
no one can then say, oh, I can't get there, the meetings are too late, or I'll miss curfew. So we brought AA to them. And that's really has been a goal of mine this season, is really to get them what they need and bring it to the shelter. They don't always have the skill set or the confidence or the knowledge even of where to go or how to get there and how to utilize the wonderful resources that we have in this community. And so we try to bring all of that to the shelter. So we've made just an amazing amount of progress from the day that we opened our doors to almost to the end of closing for our third season now with bringing in resources.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different things that you guys, services that you're providing, things that you do. You know, one thing, I know there was a company in town here, and I can't pronounce their name. It's Continental Gerbeau?
Yes.
Okay, I did that right.
Yes.
You know, one thing that people may not realize is all the laundry that
Lord.
Day by Day does. And, you know,
Yeah.
we really needed commercial grade laundry
grade,
equipment,
yep.
and they were very generous. And I mean, everybody who donates is very, very generous with
We've been
the shelter.
so blessed with,
Yeah.
with what I call community partners, guardian angels of the shelter. We had donors step forward and buy us a washer and dryer before we opened. We had no idea the amount of laundry we were going to be doing. We do all the bedding at least twice a week. And on the other 5 nights we do the guest laundry. And even that was such an experience for me our first season when we said, give us your clothes and we'll wash them. Well, when somebody comes to you and they have nothing but the clothes on their back, it's hard for them to give that up. So we had another wonderful partner in town, Foreign Print, do a drive for us that got us t-shirts and sweatpants and pajama pants for them to change into and sleep in overnight so we could take their clothes, because oftentimes, again, it was the only set of clothes they had.
Yeah.
And homeless people have a tendency to layer, so they do get sweaty and dirty, and so again we did their laundry for them, and it was really hard for us to give us one of the only things that they could call their own. And so that was a matter of trust. And so we did that, but that's another thing we do. It's people ask me all the time, Angie, what do you do? And I say 2 things. We save people's lives and we build relationships. And really, bottom line, that is what we do every single day at Day by Day. So they came in, but those washers got used so much, they were just a regular home washer and dryer.
Yeah.
And I had 3 repair calls in the first season, and I'm kind of going, my gosh, by this time I could have bought a new one. And so Continental stepped up and provided us with a wonderful commercial-sized washer, uses less water, less detergent, more efficient, wrings them out drier. And this season, they gave us a beautiful double-stack dryer because the drying takes so much time. And so, again, we do about 150 loads of laundry every single week. So
That's incredible.
yeah, Family Dollar just stepped up and brought us all sorts of laundry detergent, which is a blessing. And it's like, because we go through a lot of laundry detergent.
Yeah, well, and later on we're going to show a slide also of some of the greatest needs that we have, so we can talk about that then too. But you know, it's just when you think about homeless people, it's the little things that they need. Like as we kicked off the winter, they needed little things like chapstick. Well, we went and we bought chapstick for everybody. And not necessarily chapstick the brand, but you know, lip balm.
Yep.
And you know, you take things like that for granted.
Yeah, hand and toe warmers are something I beg and ask for all the time on our Facebook page, on our website. We have a list of needs on our website and in our newsletter that people can go to and you know, look and see what we need specifically. But a lot of the hand and toe warmers are just something that people go, well, you know, they're out for 10 hours a day, because now this last season we opened at 6 o'clock instead of 8. So the first 2 seasons were 12 hours, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Now we're open 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. So we're open 14 hours a day. And but even to be outside, if it's 32 degrees and you are outside for 10 hours a day, you can't tell me that you're not freezing by the end of that time. So we work on just really getting them some basic needs. So hand and toe warmers we stock and we give out on a daily basis if it's freezing, if it's 32 or colder.
Yeah. And we talked about that your capacity is 25. Another slide that we have is on overflow guests. You know, now that you're into your third year, and I think this is from, second season, but, you know, is that sign still up, or do you have a different sign now? Or
Well, unfortunately, that sign gets put on the door every time we are at 25, which is often.
And then where do they go?
If they're already in the building or in line, we talk to them, we give them a sleeping bag, we give them a gift card for a local restaurant that's open late where they can get something hot to drink or something hot to eat. If they have a contact number or a person that we can contact to get a hold of them, and if a bed would become available during the evening, we would contact them, or we tell them to come back the next night, because beds are on a first come, first served basis every night at the shelter. So we never know from night to night how many people we're going to have. Even with and I'll put this in quotes, the nicer spring-like weather that we've not been having the last week, we're still running between 23 and 25 guests a night.
So they get sleeping bags, they get a little gift card for a restaurant or whatever. And then do they return the sleeping bags?
They don't need to.
Okay.
The very first time that this happened, it was our first season, and we had, it was a brutally cold, snowy night, and we brought everybody in. We didn't let them stand outside and wait. We brought everybody in the hallway, in the entryway where we check people in, and our sign-in sheet has 25 slots on it. And so we got to number 25, and we had number 26 still standing there. And it was a guest that had been with us for the majority of the season, a female guest, severely alcoholic. And she just burst into tears, and she goes, "I will die if I have to go out in this." And one of the other guests, and I cry every time I tell this story, one of the other guests, who again was a frequent, regular shelter guest, a young man, stepped forward and he said, "I've been homeless most of my life, and I know how to survive. I want you to give her my bed." And he got his jacket and his boots on, and he walked out. And we were just all standing there crying and sobbing and thankful, but concerned about him. And again, when we get full, that sign goes up on the window, and the doors are locked at that point. And so we don't have a good idea of how many people that we're actually not serving. Yeah. And that's a concern for me. That there might be many more people than we're aware of. We just catch them from time to time at opening. We do have a doorbell outside the shelter, even when the doors are locked, but I think when people see the sign, they don't bother. So again, to define or determine how many people we're turning away each season is very difficult for us.
See, in that story, you know, the first time I heard that, it was just so touching, because here's someone who's homeless and probably doesn't work, does he?
No.
And he has more of a generous, philanthropic attitude than a lot of people who have everything in the world, you know?
Well, and when I share that story in presentations and even with staff as they come and go and board members, you know, I talk to them about how many of us would have been willing to do that. I mean, really, literally putting your life on the line for someone else. And the generosity and the camaraderie and the care that they show between themselves is really a beautiful thing to watch. Yeah.
You know, one of the stereotypes that we hear about when we think of homeless is people living under the bridge. And I know in some communities that does in fact happen, especially, you know, some of your larger cities. Do we have such a thing here where people live under the bridges?
They're very creative on where they go. We take part in that point in time survey that I mentioned earlier that's done in January and in July every year. We take part of that. And so I've gone out and I've searched the city, and I know where places are that they stay and go. They're very creative, but they're also very private, because they can get picked up for, you know, sleeping on a park bench, or, you know, being inside a dressing room at an 24-hour store, or what have you. And so, you know, I don't they don't divulge to me, and I don't divulge to
Yeah.
the community where all these spots and places are. We know that there are, and that's where they typically go over the summer. Many of them couch surf is what we call it, where they go from friend to friend or acquaintance to acquaintance and stay at several people's houses. Some people have a limited income, so sometimes they will go to a hotel for a short period of time, but again, options are pretty limited there, and when money runs out, then you're back on the street. So a lot of those situations are very concerning to us. One of the things that we did last season that we're going to do again, I just secured funding for this next season, is that we are going to do community outreach during our off season. So 1 day a week for 4 hours, the guests who have stayed with us previously, this isn't open to the general public, but for our previous former guests,
Sure.
they can come in and have their laundry done, have a shower, and pick up their mail. And that was very well received by the guests last summer. They utilized that service greatly. One individual came in and said he came in like at was there at 5 to 10, and he stayed until just a few minutes before we closed, and then got up and took a shower, and he said he just slept the entire 4 hours, and he said that's the only safe 4 hours of sleep that he got that week. I need 8 hours a night, much less 4 solid safe hours of sleep in that week. And so again, that really touched us, and we get to know the guests on a more personal one-on-one basis. Again, it's that relationship building when we have those smaller groups and opportunities and more one-on-one conversations with them over the summer. So again, we're very fortunate that I was able to find the funding to support that program again this coming summer.
Well, I would think that he's very correct that is the best sleep he probably got, because if you think about it, you're having to live on the street, sleep wherever you can find a place. I don't know how I would sleep in a situation like that. You kind of have to sleep with one eye open.
Absolutely.
And I can kind of relate to the not sleeping well part of it, certainly not being homeless. But I was driving back from out east one time, and I just got very tired, and I thought I'll just pull into a rest area and I'll sleep for an hour or two. Well, anybody walking by can see in that car. You hear about and you see movies, whether they're based on real life stories or not. You hear about these horrible things that happen where people fire into cars and whatnot. And I just got myself so worked up, I could not sleep. And I just thought, the hell with this. And I just put the car in reverse. I backed out and I took off, and I drove with the window down in the winter, so I would be forced to stay awake.
Yeah.
And that's nothing at all like what these folks have to experience and go through. So I'm sure that was some of the best sleep that he'd had all week.
It is. And again, we're very grateful to the community for, again, supporting us so that we're able to do this, because this is, again, above and beyond what we had ever thought or dreamed about when we first opened our doors. As are many of the project. I mean, when we opened our doors, we didn't have workable showers. O'Neill Enterprises and Shea Electric, two wonderful, again, community partners who stepped up, and the showers we're in a former cafeteria, and so there's old school showers from the old St. Peter's School, and they were there, but they weren't working. And so it took us a long time to process through, but these two companies stepped up and said, this is a matter of human dignity. This is a basic need. And we were doing their laundry, as I mentioned, but now we were putting clean clothes on dirty bodies. Yeah. And so we didn't get showers until, I think, about a month before we closed our first season. And again, the joy that they experienced, and again, it was like, well, we're not used to doing that. We're used to just washing up in a sink and whatever, and it's like, no, you can take a full-fledged shower now. And again, it was one of those things that I was just talking to my staff tonight earlier at our staff meeting as we were kind of wrapping up our season about the one thing that's changed us and you know, really stood out for us this season. And mine is always the same, but it continues to grow, is my attitude of gratitude. I never get in a shower anymore without thanking God that I have the privilege of having that at my disposal anytime I want.
Yeah.
And these folks, you know, now over the summer can only do that once a week, you know. So those types of stories and what I call miracles and blessings all the time, you know, happen at the shelter. And again, I don't do that single-handedly. That is the community stepping forward, taking that responsibility like we talked about in our philosophy statement, and embracing this and say, what can I do to help? And that's been wonderful. Meals is another thing. We have 180 plus meals brought in, hot homemade suppers every single night for the shelter guests. And by usually November 1st or the 15th, we have all 180 slots filled for the entire season. And people that sign up want to continue to do it season after season, and they don't just do it once in a season, they do it monthly. And we've got a wonderful couple that since the day we've opened, their family has provided a meal every single week that we've been open since 2011. That is a blessing.
Yeah, so meals is definitely a big thing, and then I want to talk about you know, some of the greatest needs and some of the maybe not so greatest needs, but just needs in general. The need for volunteers, the never-ending need for financial donations.
Yeah.
So let's talk about meals. We're not just talking about somebody buying a bunch of TV dinners and bringing them down, or would something like that be possible?
We really encourage people to do a homemade meal because we're concerned about food insecurities. And so because we provide a nighttime meal and a breakfast for them in the morning, we encourage them to go to Salvation Army across the street for lunch if they choose. Or we can bag their breakfast and they can take that with them and use as a lunch. But we really want them to have a well-balanced diet, good food, comfort food, if you will. A lot of them have dental issues, so we, like when we do their breakfast bags, we don't put in crunchy granola bars, we put in cereal bars because it's easier for them to chew. We love to have fresh fruits and vegetables, you know, when they're available, and encourage people to bring that in. But really but basic, solid, you know, we do, you know, families bring in and groups bring in our meal providers a lot of casseroles and soups and stews, and we have a full-blown Thanksgiving meal. We have a wonderful Christmas celebration, and well, we won't do Easter this year because we'll be closed, but when it falls in right, you know, we do holidays. We decorate a tree. I am Martha Stewart wannabe because we decorate for every holiday because this is their home. Yeah. And many of the guests stay with us a good majority of the season. Our average stay is right now is about 23 guests a night, and the average stay is about 22 nights per guest. We do have some guests that stay with us the entire season. We don't have a limit on how many days they can stay with us, which is again unique to us. Most other shelters have a 30-day limit, and the reason we don't have that is because we really are the last stop for these people. They don't really have any other sheltering options, and so therefore at this point in time we don't feel ethically and morally that it's right to kick somebody out in 30 days if they don't have a place to stay. Yeah. Again, not creating dependency, but giving them an opportunity to be safe, be warm, have those meals, their food insecurities taken care of, so that they can focus on the other things. And like I said, it could be sobriety, it could be their physical health, it could be their mental health. We have 4 wonderful medical staff that come in and volunteer weekly. And it's like a medical triage where they come in, they see the guests, they talk to the guests, they find out what's going on, they do what they can to help them. If it's above and beyond the scope of what we can do on site, we're not a licensed clinic or anything like that. We partner with the Living Healthy Clinic, and they've been a wonderful partner. So if they need lab work, if they need prescriptions, we get them connected to Living Healthy. We do all the paperwork for them. So it's a very easy transition. We'll give them a bus token to get out there. Transportation is always an issue. So again, you can see, you know, kind of by these stories that again, there's multiple layers. But when you take care of some of these basic things like health care, you know, again, they can focus on some of the other things and needs that they have.
Sure. You said transportation is an issue. Do you ever have situations where you may have people in the community who want to step up and just give folks a ride to such and such a place? Do you have
Yeah,
that kind of need? Or are
mostly-
you more in terms of bus tokens? and
Mostly
so
our
forth?
volunteers have said, well, well, I can take, Joe here or Susie here, and if for liability issues, we can't allow that to happen. So we work off of 2 modes of transportation, 3 actually. We have 2 bikes that we loan out to guests that need them. In good weather. We provide bus tokens when they're available, and the bus tokens again are something that come from the community, or funding that comes from the community. And then in emergency situations, for example, if someone has a health issue not severe enough to call 911, but it's after the buses are running, we do have an account with the city cab that will provide cab rides to a clinic or doctor or hospital or whatever the case may be. And again, all of those things are funded by the community. So greatest needs, cash is king.
Yeah.
Sustainability, our greatest expenses are staffing. We have 2 paid staff on all night, overnight, 7 days a week, 180 days throughout the year. We have our utilities. I just got our water bill and it was $800.
For the quarter.
Heat and electric, yeah. So, and again, remember 150 loads of laundry, all those showers. We use a lot of utilities, so that's a large expense. Just the liability and insurance to run a nonprofit. Those are some of our biggest things. We need to have phones, it's $127 a month for our phones. So all of those things, sustainability is what we need. And again, we look to the community to do that. And we've gotten that through faith communities is really what started us out. That helped us garner that money. We have really grown our donor base with individuals. And we're up to, I think before I came to the shelter, there were maybe 3 or 4 grants written, and now we're up to about 28 grants a season for the year. So we've really increased that. We went from about $100,000 budget, we're up to about $170,000 this season for our budget.
Yeah. Let's talk about how much it costs to operate the shelter for a night or a week or a season. And I know we put this information in the newsletter.
Yeah.
So can we kind of elaborate a little bit on that for viewers?
Sure. Our budget is $170,000, and again, that's for this year. That's for 18 staff. So do the math, folks. None of us are getting paid a lot, right, Cheryl? But that's our budget for the year, and again, the biggest chunk of that is payroll. But to house a guest at the shelter is $64 a night, and so we've kind of looked at payroll and staffing and utilities and food costs and all of that, and $64 a night to keep someone safe and alive and well. People often ask me, Angie, I want to hear about success stories, and I said, well, I have almost 25 of those every single night of the 180 days season that we're open, and and that's so true, because it would be hundreds of dollars if they would be, and my word is impaired, and picked up by the police department and go to jail. That's hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
If you would send them to a hospital, that would be thousands. If we're talking crisis bed and therapeutic care, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. So $64 a person per night at the shelter, I think, is a bargain.
Yeah.
And
Can
again,
I just play devil's advocate with that, Angie? Because somebody mentioned that to me. They saw it in their church bulletin or something like that. And they said, well, $64 a night, for $64 a night, you could put these folks up at a motel for less than that. So how do you respond to that?
Find me a hotel. It's a lot of people are very. This is not a population that a lot of people have warm fuzzies towards.
Yeah.
They don't look nice. They don't have social skills for the most part. Sometimes they don't smell very nice. And one of the most beautiful things that we give at the shelter, besides all the things that we've mentioned so far, is again that relationship, the respect and dignity, and that goes both ways. When we had this brutal winter this past season, we had so many firsts this third season, and one of which is 6 times we had to extend hours because of the weather and the cold, and 4 of those 6 times were for 24 hours a day. And our guests were so incredibly thankful. And that's pretty much last minute planning for us. I mean, we're talking staffing. I hire people to do second and third shift work, and this is daytime. So to find the staff, to find the funding to pay the staff, to get the volunteers in, to find meals, and a volunteer came in and said, "What can I do?" And I said, "How would you like to buy pizzas for everybody for lunch?" So we don't ever turn down free food, which are two of my favorite F words. But that's what we did that first day, because it was kind of like I waited to make the call till 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was still 35 below wind chill, and I went, my God, we can't send these people out, in the cold. And so we had, obviously thought about it, and I watched the forecast, and I have an app on my phone now, and so I watch the weather in a way different way than I ever did before, especially during our season. But those are the types of things that we look to plan for. But a lot of times it's very last minute, or if guests have needs. One of them came in and said, I gained my sobriety, I got a job, but I need steel-toed shoes. My first go-to is our Facebook page. So if you haven't liked us on Facebook, I want people to like us on Facebook, because I put the needs out there, what we need currently, because that need changes, really day by day. Our name is so appropriate in so many ways. Sometimes I call it the minute-by-minute shelter, but for the most part, we're day by day. And so, I put that out there, and in a matter of just a few minutes, I had 3 people contact me. Well, I'll either send you a check, or do you want to take them there? I think my husband has a pair that he's not using anymore. What size do you need? And those types of things. So again, it's been wonderful that people, step up and help us with those needs, because again, they're different, every single day. But success stories, we've had the big ones. We've had people gain their sobriety, become healthy, have their meds regulated, because we have medical staff and prescriptions available to people that have life-threatening illnesses, and diabetics that don't have insulin. We have been able to step in and help them get those basic needs met. People ask me about, like lice and bed bugs and all those. We've never had an issue ever, because we have showers. We require the guests to take a shower. They now do so willingly and happily. So all of those things are really important to their self-esteem. And again, so often they come in and they say, Angie, people won't even give us eye contact. They will cross the street and go down the street just to avoid making eye contact with us. And these are God's children. These are human beings, and these are our neighbors. And I embrace them all, because it's who I am and what I do and what I feel called to do. But to be able to see that simple little things like a meal and a shower and a pair of boots can make such a difference in the lives of these folks. Those hand and toe warmers.
And if anyone out there, doesn't understand what a nice shower feels like, be hospitalized for a few days, where you can't take a shower, say after an operation, and or a week because you've had surgery, and then how good that first shower feels. It's unbelievable. People somebody said to me, well, do we have a lot of people who, when the cold, like snowbirds, when the cold weather comes in, they go down south to warmer states? I'm sure that we have some of that, don't we? Or do you not know?
I think there is. And I'm always surprised when it works just the opposite, because we've had a couple of folks come up from Texas and in the southern states to get field work up here, jobs up here at some of the packaging plants and those types of things. And I'm always kind of going, why are you leaving a warm area and heading north to the frozen tundra up here? I think it runs both ways, to be honest. But again, the majority of people that we're serving are from our community, and so again, situations, circumstances, I've discovered that we do a lot of respite care, which is something we never even considered when we opened the doors. At least I didn't think about. In that when there are mental health issues or drug or alcohol issues or criminal backgrounds and those types of things, that families have a breaking point. And then when they get to that point and they say, no, we're changing the locks, we're done, you need to figure this out. These, we've seen a lot of younger, I call them kids, come through our doors. You do have to be 18 to be served at the shelter, but we've had an 18-year-old stay with us. We've had 19 and 20s stay with us. And a lot of those circumstances and situations, again, are not long-term, but they're long enough term that these young people wouldn't survive if a place like Day by Day didn't exist. So again, giving those families respite, giving these young people an opportunity to have a safe place and a roof over their head and a warm bed to sleep in and meals to figure out what is my next step. Yeah. How do I get straight? How do I get sober?
Yeah. Do you have families who stay there, or is it mostly single folks?
Mostly singles, but we have had families stay, and when I use the term families, I mean the mom and dad,
okay,
or the parent stays with us, because again, we are 18 and over. So we have had families come and stay with us that will leave their children with acquaintances or friends or
okay,
relatives.
Well, that has to be tough on them too.
It is, and so like we had a couple last season that would stay with us 5 days a week, and then on the weekends. People are willing to open their homes to homeless people and families and acquaintances and friends on the weekends when they're home, but not during the week when they're working and they're not there so much. So that too has been kind of interesting to watch that dynamic. And so this couple had 2 children. The 2 children stayed with their friends, and then they would all stay together on the weekends. And then on Monday, when the friends went back to work and they take the kids to school, and the guests would stay with us.
Yeah, that has to be very, very tough.
And it's the economy, it's jobs, it's people not being able to afford, and part of our growing concern for looking forward is we don't have the next step here in Oshkosh for what I call my people. That in 6 months' time, even if you get sober and you get a job, in 6 months, it's not realistic to expect that you're going to have enough money for first and last month's rent, a security deposit, to put furniture in that apartment, have clothes on your back, and be able to feed yourself. That's not realistic. So there needs to be the next step up from what happens, and I like to say when they graduate out of Day by Day, when they're stable but not stable enough to be independent on their own. So what does that look like? Where is that going to be? So that's something that we're thinking about, and again, looking to the community and other partners in the community and other resources to say, what can we do collaboratively to make this next step happen so that we have a complete continuum of care for housing.
Sure. Well, let's talk about some of what the greatest needs are. You've alluded to some of them. Money, of course, like you said, cash is king, so that is a constant. But here are some of the, and cash is right at the top of the list too, along with volunteers. What kind of criteria are you looking for, Angie, when it comes to a volunteer?
We have had wonderful volunteer coordinators, and we have gotten this down, I think, to a science now. It's very easy to volunteer. We have an application online, which is warmingshelter.com. You click on the volunteer tab, it'll take you to the volunteer application. That gets sent to us. During the season, starting in September through March, we have orientations monthly, 2 a month, so that you can come to that morning or afternoon. Those information and dates are always on our website, are available through our volunteer coordinator, and again, her information is on the website as well. And then you go through the orientation, and then we have calendars again on the website that you sign up for. So whether it's a meal or checking people in at night or signing them up for showers or to pick a chore, or we also have morning volunteer slots as well from 6:30 a.m. until 8 a.m. So there's nighttime, there's daytime. If you can't do either of those, or some people just really don't want to be there when the guests are there, we have other opportunities like fund development and fundraisers and cleaning opportunities, which is, the big stuff, those types of things are done daytime. So friend raise for us, those are all things that volunteers can do for us. And since we've opened our doors, we've had over 500 people walk through our doors in some capacity.
Wow.
and help us. So that tells us, too, that the community also embraces and understands that this need has been here for a long time, and they're really doing and stepping up and helping us in a lot of ways.
Sure. One of the items on the list was consumable goods. And, when I think of consuming, I think of eating. But what other types of consumable goods? I mean, we mentioned chapstick before.
Yep.
What are some of the little things that you guys need a lot of?
It's, I put this in the stuff category, but we go through more coffee than you would ever imagine, both decaf for at night and caffeinated in the morning. We do things like tea and hot chocolate packets, cups. We've gone to being very green, but we still use paper cups for the guests. Things like laundry detergent. We're stocked on that now, so don't anybody send that down because Family Dollar hooked us up. Bleach, those types of things. The mattresses are wiped down. Everything is sanitized. Bathroom cleaner, toilet bowl cleaner. We're good on toilet paper right now, but we go through a lot of toilet paper. Yeah. Paper towel, dish soap, those types of things. Everything that we put in the breakfast bags, those cereal bars, fruit cups, napkins, and anything that we use on a daily basis for the guests, either cleaning or supplying for them. Like we do a care package at the end of the season, and in there we're going to put bug spray and sunscreen and chapstick and hygiene items like deodorant, body wash, the travel size, those things we put in a package for them that they can take out with them. Again, if they're in the area and they stay in the area and they come to us once a week for a shower, that's great. But again, to wash up and freshen up in between time. We've been blessed with so many of the dentists supporting us with toothpaste and toothbrushes. So those are things that we give out to them regularly at the shelter, so they have their own when they're with us. But then we do those special care packages again at the end of the season as well.
It's just all that little stuff that, like I said earlier, people just really don't think about. Because we're just used to having all these things in our own homes.
Right.
And, you don't think about someone who doesn't have something as simple as their own toothbrush.
Right. We don't accept clothes. I get a lot of calls about that. And we don't accept clothes for two reasons. Number one, because we'd never have the sizes that we need. And number two, because we have great partnerships with Goodwill and St. Vincent de Paul. So
take them to Goodwill
so
if
when
you're looking to get rid of clothing.
So when our guests are in need, if you have clothing to donate, I recommend those two places to donate because they have partnerships with us, and the guests either tell me what they need and I go and get that, or we'll go out together, or I'll meet them out there, or we get them vouchers, or whatever. We do it in a variety of different ways at the two stores, but we get them their needs met. But the other thing is, as much as I love our facility, we have next to no storage space whatsoever. So when I say don't send any more toilet paper or bleach or laundry detergent, I mean that because we're busted at the seams right now because we have no storage. So that's another concern. So if people are wondering what we need, watch the Facebook page or just give me a call, and myself or one of my staff will get back to you, within a day or two tops, and just say, yay or nay. We can use that.
Sure. One of the things that I just love about you is that you are so involved, and the staff too, and the volunteers, so directly involved with the guests who stay there. And it's very unlike what you see at a lot of other shelters or places where you can go. And I think we've all heard stories, whether it's here in Oshkosh or some other community, where they're just not they're sort of detached, and you're not at all. I mean, you put yourself as much in their shoes as you can. And I think that is much to your credit. It's much to the credit of your staff. I
have the best staff on the planet.
Yeah.
I am
much
so
to the credit
blessed.
Of volunteers. Everybody really, and I don't work down there. I have the advantage of working from home, so I don't see what you guys do, you know, day by day, but I see it in the things that you send me to put in the newsletter and the stories that you share. And I think that this community would, not only would it be lost without Day by Day, but it would be lost without you. It would be lost without your staff and your volunteers, and it'd be lost without Tina.
Yeah, we are so fortunate that we have a very passionate board. I have the best staff in the world. I love and adore each and every one of them. I would do anything for them. As a matter of fact, one of them got sick last night, so I went in and I worked from 10 o'clock till 1 o'clock this morning so he could go home and get well. Because that's who I am and that's what I do, and that's what was needed to be done. And our volunteers are amazing. So many volunteers, when they come through the orientation process, I think sometimes they come out of curiosity to see where it is and who we serve and what kind of stuff we do. And once our volunteer coordinator, Megan, takes them through that, and again, she works there. She doesn't just do the volunteer coordinating. She is hands-on frontline staff. She also works down there with the guests every single night, and she shares that, her passion with the volunteers. And when the volunteers come down, and I can tell you, I have had CEOs of companies and foundations and corporations in this community that have come down to volunteer, even if it's just once a season. They have shared with me, as have many of our volunteers, because again, if it wasn't for our volunteers, we couldn't operate. And they have all shared with me that it is a life-changing experience. And the perceptions that they had of what homelessness looked like or what a homeless person looked like. And Stu Rickman, the chair of the United Way campaign this past year, came down and volunteered several times. And he was sharing at one of the United Way presentations that I did with him earlier in the season for the campaign, you know, teared up, and he said, until you are across from another human being and handing them their only meal that they had that day, he said, it changes you.
Yeah.
So, and I could not agree more, that being there and being that invested and taking that step out in faith and taking that risk to serve someone that might be challenging all your perceptions, really is life-changing.
Well, and we're almost out of time, but it's amazing also what you do with the amount of space that you have.
The space and the amount of money, they don't call me Mrs. Frugal for nothing. I can make a 20 look like 50 easily, and I do. I mean, I shop around. Every 2 years we buy the guests that stay with us new boots for the winter season, because you would not believe the footwear that they come in with. Insufficient is a nice way to put that.
Yeah.
But you know, I go and ask all my friends or I go to faith communities and say, this is what I need and this is how much I need, and then I go and I beg from all these different corporations and, you know, stores and businesses to get the best deal, and I myself go out and I buy the boots. Yeah. And it's like, you know, and some people will, you know, we will take coats on occasion, and people will bring them down. Well, we had 12 coats last year, but half of them had the zippers broken, and it cost $60 to replace the zipper. Yeah. We can't afford to do that. So sometimes I offend people when I say, no, we can't take that.
Yeah.
And it's not that I want to offend them, but these are human beings with a level of respect and dignity that I'm not going to give them anything that I wouldn't wear myself,
right,
or put on my feet. And so I want nice things for them. So we do that, and the community has really stepped up again and helped me do that.
All right. Well, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And you can visit them at warmingshelter.com. I always want to put the word Oshkosh in there for some reason.
Warmingshelter.com.
That's where we are, but it's just warmingshelter.com. And you can find us on Facebook as well. So thanks, Angie, for everything that you do and for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Of course. It always is. All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.
Thank you.